صباح الخير.
السيد رئيس مجلس الأعلى للتربية والتكوين والبحث العلمي، السيد مدير الوكالة الوطنية لمحاربة الأمية، السيدة ممثلة الاتحاد الأوروبي والسيدة ممثلة اليونسكو، السادة والسيدات، أيها الحضور الكريم، يشرفني أن أرحب بكم في هذه الندوة العلمية التي ينظمها المجلس الأعلى للتربية والتكوين والبحث العلمي بإشراك مع الوكالة الوطنية لمحاربة الأمية ومنظمة اليونسكو تحت عنوان معهد التكوين في مهن محاربة الأمية أولوية استراتيجية لتحسين جودة التعلمات بالمغرب. ولإعطاء الانطلاقة لهذه الندوة يشرفني أن أعطي الكلمة للسيد رئيس المجلس الأعلى للتربية والتكوين والبحث العلمي. السيد الرئيس تفضل. شكرا.
جميع المشاركين في هذا اللقاء، وأشكركم جميعا على تفضلكم
attending and for participating.
لابد أن أتمم كل ما قام به السيد المدير العام،
applaud all the efforts done
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
by everyone who participated in this. Peace be upon you all.
الوكالة الوطنية لمحو الأمية، سيدات والسادة ممثلو منظمة اليونسكو، سيدات والسادة ممثلو الاتحاد الأوروبي، الحضور
the representatives of EU, it is my pleasure to be here with you today in order to discuss the Training Institute for Literacy Professions, a strategic priority to improve the quality of literacy in Morocco. And we implore all the efforts that have been put into building this institute with the help of all the partners, which will help us improve socially. This practice will improve essentially the ability to enter the working world, the job market, and this will help us minimize the gaps between the different social classes by giving people the ability to think critically. We are working on finding solutions to different challenges that we are facing. Our priority is to improve the quality of literacy in Morocco, which is what this institute is working on by engineering for important jobs. Fight of illiteracy is not a matter of fighting the inability to read and write. It is the aspiration to build a better future. This will have different the rate of illiteracy has declined by almost 26% in 2011 in comparison to much more in 2014. And we can notice the disparity between the genders as illiteracy among girls, it was much higher. For example, among girls, almost 40% was covered by men, as opposed to 60% that represented women. And these rates are much higher in the countryside as compared to the urban areas. Ladies and gentlemen, this institute will enable us to improve education, which goes hand in hand with the strategic vision, which revolves around sustainable education, and improving individuals. It can be summarized in
مع حاجات المستفيد
enabling all countries to be able to follow up and to put their efforts into prioritizing the quality of literacy. And second, to put down good governance and to find solutions to financing issues. And to give a priority to the scientific research in order to fight illiteracy. And third, to organize activities concerning all children that do not attend schools. This program is supposed to include all children. And fourth is to provide
خامس
orientation for irregular education. Fifth is to capitalize on the abilities we have. Sixth, modernize our abilities to sit down partnerships
It comes for the implementation of the Legal Law 2324, since it stipulates that the government collaborates with all the stakeholders, civil society, to take all the appropriate procedures to carry on the plan targeting to reduce the percentage of illiteracy and to mobilize finance and to enhance collaboration and bilateral cooperation and the preparation of programs to combat illiteracy and to be implemented, as well as have appropriate programs for the education. The government shall provide projects to enhance and to capacity building of the people in order to be integrated vocationally, economically, to maintain their activities in the daily life. Ladies and gentlemen, the issue of illiteracy is a fundamental factor in the agenda of the United Nations in SDGs 2030 for sustainable development, and these are the objectives that Morocco has committed to and prepares for good education and opportunities of education in all age groups, and also objective 4, preserve the collaboration of the youth to learn skills, competences in reading, writing, and have the opportunity also for the adult, those who do not have it. The COVID-19 was a challenge to know more about the issue of illiteracy and to eradicate it, because it shall not be limited to be one part of the education because of its role in the empowerment and of the individuals and to improve their life. It is a means for daily communication. Illiteracy is a motor or an engine for sustainable development, including it is a fundamental element in education and way of life education. Morocco has called for the 7th conference under the logo Education of Adults for Sustainable Development in collaboration with the United Nations, the UNESCO. Under the patronage of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, that was in 2022, involving all the stakeholders all over the world in order to determine the education for adults and to teach them in the upcoming decade, where His Majesty is quoted to establish the African Institution of Education for Life. His Majesty reiterating that this initiative aiming to strengthen coordination South-South in the adult education and life education. He also iterated His Majesty that the Kingdom of Morocco adopting this conference enshrine its involvement in the concept of life education, while indicating His Majesty that this commitment crystallize on the ground while the city of Shawan and Maghrib joining the network of education, and Morocco has a chair in the UNESCO, and his orientations and guidelines, Majesty, there was an institution that was established with the attendance of 39 African countries, which indicate that the interest of continuous education for sustainable development in the African continent in order to set up strategies and education policies on life education and to prioritize items and to be translated on learning map and for the education for life in coordination with the stakeholders on education and vocational education and postgraduate education and illiteracy. We are the council. Second, highly the role of the institution in combating literacy and to improve training, seeking to renew the training in the different vocations, in addition to its endeavor on the platform education to provide education which underpin the integration of the adult in education and vocational training based on the doctrine of learning for life. And we are determined that this conference comes to learn about the work of the institution and to the approach of the methodology in the education. I wish success, prosperity to your conference, and thank you for your listening. Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I recognize His Excellency Abdel Wadud Kharbush. In the name of Allah, most merciful, most beneficent. Your Excellency, Mr. Al-Malki, Head of the Council, President of the Council, the representative of the European Union in Morocco, Mariana Kalaman, the UNESCO representative in the Maghrebian countries, Isabel Kimth, the Director of the UNESCO of Life Education, who is here with us online from Hamburg in Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to contribute in the opening of this conference in the headquarters of the Council. And at the outset, I would like to welcome all of you and all the experts taking part of this conference on the Training Institution for Literacy Profession, IFMA, a strategic priority to improve the quality of literacy in Morocco. This center, which is part of the quality project in the roadmap of the IMF 2327 as a practical translation to achieve the quality of education in combating illiteracy in our country. And that's in tune with the royal guidance of His Majesty Mohammed VI and his vision to develop the education in the Kingdom of Morocco and to promote the human capital. This institution will enable the practitioners in combating illiteracy with all its kinds of the TOT and the supervisors on implementing the programs on combating illiteracy to have educations and skills while practicing their jobs, while preparing it. We do apologize, there's a buzz on this from the source. Using the digital in education and also respect the specificities of the adult and the national standards and the international measures, ladies and gentlemen. This institution is a fruit of long effort of all the different protagonists that it has been established in two stages. The first one, it was on having the education ecosystem in collaboration with the centers and the national centers of the education affiliated under the Ministry of Education and Sport. And we have prepared all the references, training, evaluation regarding combating illiteracy based on the previous references and the international experiences, taking into consideration the output of the field project that were programmed for this project. And also we have prepared the training through drafting modules and the process of education either physically or online. The second one is a pilot one to test the project in two parts of Morocco or regions, the region of Beni Mellal Khonifra and the town Al Husayma. During these two, we have adopted an open platform or an open source for the institution in collaboration with the online education in the Ministry of Education and Sport. And we have a system for the center and to have a vision to implement the programs of the institution based on a scientific methodology done by the experts. And to assess the fruit of this project, we had a survey and a study to determine the status quo of these targeted regions in the pilot project in order to determine the values of these indicators that will be used as indicators and assess to see the project. And therefore we have built the institution gradually, and this will be in tune with the request of the vocational system in order to accompany the process of education for life, ladies and gentlemen. While trying to preserve the quality of education in combating illiteracy, our contribution to advance this sector and to create new visions for continuous education through the LITHMA Center and its contribution to develop education in our country and to reach the objectives. We in the agency will second the initiatives similar to this scientific conference that represents an important step in order to call for similar conferences to debate different topics and issues related to the system education in our country and to advance it in order to get into the objectives especially objective number 4 for the education quality.
And we ensure you that this meeting is an opportunity to exchange our opinions and to find and to promote this institute all throughout the kingdom. And in conclusion, I would like to thank all the audience for your attention, and I hope this meeting is fruitful. And I would like to thank everyone who participated in organizing this meeting, and with the help of God we shall fight illiteracy under the patronage of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI. And peace be upon you. Thank you very much.
شكرا سيد.
Thank you so much. We now give the word to Lisbeth, the Social Development and Territorial Cohesion Delegation of the European Union to Morocco.
Représente l'Union européenne. Je ne sais pas si c'est la traduction.
أمثل
صباح الخير.
أمثل.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank Mr. President of the Higher Council for Education, Training and Scientific Research. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Representative of the National Agency for the Countering Illiteracy. I would like to recall that the partnership between the European Union and Morocco on literacy is a partnership that started 15 years ago and continue in a wider framework under the auspices of training in general. The participation of Morocco in countering illiteracy is a basis that we share together to leave no one behind. Working together has enlightened us to understand that literacy is linked to every aspect of education, including training, higher education, and professional vocational training. Literacy is part of all the life aspects with different needs, so depending on the age, the life project, targeted people. Hence, the importance to adopt an approach targeting the learners. Today, we are going to cooperate with IFMA, the Institute for Literacy Skills Training, and the European Union has worked with Morocco at an early stage of this training and initiative with the help of UNESCO to create the institute. It's a very ambitious project, and we need to recognize that IFMA is a hybrid manner to deliver trainings. I'm not going to go into details at the moment because we're going to do that later, but we work with trainers since it's an important or a primordial condition to the improvement of literacy and post-literacy. We have come to the end of a first mutual phase of work, and we prove that the work has just started. We need to face many challenges in order to make sure the institute is operational. I would like to say that the European Union, and we are proud to say that we are the co-founders of this institute. We would like to wish the Higher Council for Education, Training and Scientific Research and all the expertise, trainers, success. We count on UNESCO and its expertise in the matter, and we do agree, all of us, that countering illiteracy is important for the prosperity and growth of the Kingdom of Morocco, but also for the Mediterranean region and by ricochet for everyone, and we are very happy to share this partnership between the Mediterranean region and Morocco. I wish you success. Thank you very much.
بالمغرب. الكلمة الآن للسيدة إيزابيل كامب مديرة معهد التعلم مدى الحياة التابع لليونسكو التي ستلقي مداخلتها عن بعد. C'est à vous, madame.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, dear colleagues, I would like to thank Mr. El Malki, President of the Higher Council for Education, Trainings and Scientific Research. I would like to thank Mr. Karbouch, Director General of the National Agency for the Illiteracy. I'd like to thank my colleagues Mariana as well as Elise Pat, the representative of the European Union delegation. I'd like to thank Mr. Ben Moussa, the Minister of National Education, Preschool and Sport, for his valuable support and for following the recommendation of the Conference of Marrakesh. The sound is very bad. I'm afraid the interpretation is being challenged. The initiative developed with UNESCO is our lever to develop and go forward in the national, local, international level at or around the lifelong learning processes. Yves Manor is highlighting the importance of the training and trainers and the good interest of public interest. Our institute is working on the next global report on the learning of adults called GRAIN. We're doing a qualitative and quantitative study in order to collect the data for the development and the implementation of a recommendations of Marrakesh conference. We're working also in order to develop different strategies. For example, the Alliance and Strategy for the Literacy and the Global Coalition for Education. Our objective is to train 100,000 educator or trainer to use efficiently technology in terms of teaching adults. Writing, learning, and calculation. We collaborate with Morocco, Cote d'Ivoire, and Nigeria. Our institute has also contributed to working with UNESCO. I'm afraid the sound from the lady is very bad, which is challenging for the interpreters, I'm afraid.
Notre institut dispose des cours de formation en ligne, des ateliers, des communautés de pratiques, des webinars, ainsi qu'un répertoire utile et des lignes directrices sur l'apprentissage tout au long de la vie, l'éducation des adultes et aussi pour l'alphabétisation. Nos ressources uniques ont fait l'objet de partage dans le cadre de l'initiative IFMA, qui constitue dans ces faits un bien commun qui peut être mis à la disposition des autres pays. Au niveau local, nous avons le réseau mondial des villes apprenantes de l'UNESCO, qui comprend maintenant 356 villes en presque 80 pays, et contribue également à la promouvoir l'alphabétisation. Ces actions de réforme et d'orientation politique de l'alphabétisation sont complémentées par la mise à disposition des données fiables à travers de la recherche-action sur les mesures des apprentissages de l'alphabétisation et des alternatives éducatives à ma aide et je suis contente que notre expert Madina va être avec vous pour les discussions techniques aujourd'hui. Notre institut tient à renouveler sa disponibilité pour continuer à apporter son expertise pour la poursuite de sa mise en œuvre dans une perspective holistique et systémique. Voici quelques réflexions que j'aimerais bien partager avec vous. Je vous remercie beaucoup de votre attention et je vous souhaite un séminaire très productif et une bonne journée. Merci beaucoup.
شكرا للسيدة إيزابيل كيمف. الكلمة الآن للسيدة ماريانا الكالي متخصصة في برامج التربية بمكتب اليونسكو لبلدان المغرب العربي.
Monsieur El Malki, président du Conseil.
Mr. El Malki, President of the Higher Council for Education, Training and Scientific Research. Mr. Harbush, Director General of the National Agency to Counter Illiteracy. Ms. Pat, Head of Section of the Social Development and Territorial Cohesion from the European Union. Delegation in Morocco, Mrs. Kempf, Director of the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. Dear partners, colleagues, or protocols, respected excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, it is a real pleasure and with a deep respect I would like to address you on behalf of UNESCO to treat an important subject, which is illiteracy of youth and adults in Morocco. During this event, we will have the opportunity to see the implementation of the Institute of Literacy Skills Training, IFMA, a strategy that highlights the quality of literacy as a priority for the Kingdom of Morocco. The head of section, Hélène Guiol, in Rabat, whom you know, most of you know, wanted to be present with us in Rabat, but unfortunately it was not possible. I would like to extend her greetings, and I'm here representing her today. This seminar was organized mutually with two important partners of UNESCO: the Higher Council for Education, Training and Scientific Research, a partner for the development and the promotion of innovative initiatives for the implementation of education, scientific research and training, targeting implementing equality education training skills accessible for all citizens within a framework of a lifelong learning, UIL. ANALCA, the agency, is a partner with whom we have project ongoing to teach young and youth and adults. And we have the European Union financing the initiative of IFMA. With everything that this project, since conception, development of the content, digital content development, that we will be sharing much more information during this seminar. Now we're working with our institute, UIL, on the contextualization of training for trainers of literacy in Morocco. I would like to congratulate as well the implementation of the African Foundation for Lifelong Learning that was recently created, which is an important initiative and contribute to the priorities of UNESCO. Today will be also an important opportunity to learn about the good practices and different pedagogical approaches for literacy. The General Secretary of UNESCO, Antonio Guterres, has launched a call recently to double the effort targeting the implementation of good quality trainings for a lifelong learning. He has highlighted the challenges to have access to education worldwide, highlighting therefore an emergent need to bridge the gaps, as highlighted by the Director General, and you have also mentioned that in your opening speeches. Education is the lever and driver for the implementation of the SDGs. Literacy is not only a fundamental right, but also a driver for the personal, economic, and social development. And I reiterate what you have already mentioned, gentlemen. For youth, literacy is an open way for a vocational training of quality. For adults, it's a second chance to improve their competences, skills, and be fully active. The rate of illiteracy in adults, women, and rural area citizens are alarming. And again, I reiterate what you have already mentioned in your speech. In the recent year, Morocco has showed an important approach to countering illiteracy, efforts made by local communities and Moroccan government, leading to important progress. We still need to do more in order to reach our common objectives. It is within this context that Analka has implemented IFMA, which is an instrument that is important for the development of the trainings and learning for adults. The literacies based on the cooperation between all the stakeholders, government, civil societies organization, private sector should work together in order to mobilize resources, share good practices or best practices, and implement efficient strategies. UNESCO is engaged and committed to counter and play an important role in facilitating and catalyzing these collective efforts. In this regard, I have the pleasure to announce that this year our Bureau UNESCO office or bureau is launching a series of annual publications on education in the Maghreb. The series would be entitled Maghreb Education Vision, and will give a state of art of the importance of the transformation of the education system. This year there will be the digital transformation of the education system that will be examined closely in a structured way, studying hence the efforts made by the different authorities with the support of the private and public sector in terms of governance, content, and capacities, as well as connectivity. Literacy is, of course, concerned by the digital transformation, and I invite you all to read the publication as soon as we publish it this year. Literacy for adults is a priority for sustainable development and social justice in Morocco. Together, we need to double our efforts in order to guarantee for everyone, no matter their age or situation, have access to a high quality education. While investing in education, we invest in a better future for everyone, for the Mediterranean region, for Morocco, but also for the world. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being committed toward the literacy for youth and adults. Together, we can guarantee access to literacy for everyone and contribute fully to the development of the societies, leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
شكرا للسيدة مريانا الكلاي.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Isabel Maria Alcalay. After listening to the opening statements, we now move to the panels where we will listen to Mohamed Lassisnou, President of the Governance Commission, along with Titifri Al-Asri. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Ridiculous.
Rahim, Monsieur le Président,
Excellence, Chairman, President, Director, dear colleagues, dear members of the Higher Council for Education, Training and Scientific Research, thank you for joining us. It is a pleasure for me to jointly moderate this opening session with Mrs. Lassery. She was actually the coordinator for the IFMA project. The IFMA is the training institute, but this is not a physical institute. It is virtual, and this is an innovation by itself. And we have to underline how important it is, because it will help overcome a challenge. The objective of the ANELCA is to eradicate by 2029 all illiteracy in Morocco, and this is a very important challenge based on the reference or the baseline. Today, the Global Alliance on Literacy, that is under the UNESCO, is supporting 29 countries, including Morocco. And in 2022, it says that 25% of adults 15 and more are illiterate, and of these 25%, 70% are women. So this is a big tank of people, like a big pool. And we're noticing today that there is a flow that continue to get into this pool, and this is about 500,000 students who are dropping off school, and the PNEA gives about 70% of students achieving and learning what they're supposed to learn. And this is clearly something that grows this number of illiterates, and we need to find a solution to overcome this issue by 2029. How are we going to do it? We need to do capacity building of human resources who can do a massive training. About 6.6 million illiterate in Morocco, and this is the data from the Global Alliance for Literacy. This is data for Morocco. 6.6 million people need to benefit of it. So the idea how to support this process in implementing this institute.
L'alphabétisation, c'est
This institute to help train in the field of literacy, and this experience actually was steered by a team with different backgrounds, and in the workshop they will share with us in details how things were done. I don't see the presentation behind me. Can someone show us the can you put the presentation on the screen so I can show you the approach? I was invited to talk about literacy and also about the education system. Now that we have set the context, I would like to tell you where literacy falls within the education system and also how it can become an integrated system within or for continuous learning, life learning. So it is in this context that we say that literacy is important. So could you please show my presentation on the screen? While waiting for the presentation, I would like to mention a few points. So literacy is a core to education and training because it is the basis for lifelong learning. And let me explain. So literacy includes the capacity to read, write, understand a text, and access a field of learning.
Je n'ai toujours pas la main.
Can I switch slides using this? Okay. So we already talked about the challenges. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. The first key component to know is that literacy is the core of all future learning. It contributes to personal and professional development. Mastering literacy helps people better understand the world in which they live, and which gives them more opportunities for employment and for personal development. It also helps reduce inequities. And here we're also talking about youth and literacy of youth because it plays a crucial role in social and economic environment. So if we start working from lower age, we can reduce the gap between the socio-economic classes. And here I would like to commend the Ministry of National Education for trying to reduce the flow of dropouts, the number of dropouts, and I wish them all success, especially the pioneer schools, hoping if that experience is successful, it will efficiently contribute to reduce inequities. The impact on health is also an important component. The people who are literate are better informed on issues of health. Therefore, they can take an educated decision. They can take an educated decision for their well-being and the well-being of their family. And they can read the prescription and read the instructions for the medicine. There is also a transmission. Today, 70% of the 25% are women. So literacy is very important in order to guarantee the cultural transmission and also for the well-being of individuals. There is also an impact on adaptation to climate change or adaptation to technological change. And competencies when it comes to reading and writing are very important to use internet, to use software. In other words, to stay up to date and to be able to compete in the labor market. You need that. And finally, understanding the news which will allow us to be aware of our rights, to be able to vote, but also to be committed and respect our community commitments. And this can be done only by changing our education system to an integrated system where we can have lifelong learning. We do have with us Mr. Secretary General of the National Commission of Science, Culture and Education, who is also the Executive Director for the African Lifelong Learning. This is a very important component. So we have what is needed to reach our objective. We do have the strategy 2015-2030 for the education, and actually this is a translation or transcription of the Sustainable Development Goal number 4. And it was included in the National Strategy for Education. So today we have the tools, and we also have an organic law that has all, or that sets all the legal framework.
Mais qui dit que, en réalité,
so the system targets learning, all life learning, lifelong learning, and you can get certified because you get recognized, you validate the work you do, and you validate the learning, and this doesn't have to be done through official education system, but at the end you get a certificate that has a value for the society. So this national system for certification that is in line with the national framework has pedagogical aspect to it, and this is something we do through IFMA. So this is how we decided to set up the institute. So a pedagogical model that is built on achievement. We do have a value chain for learning that starts with what are the needs, and at the end you get a degree or a certificate that is recognized by the market. When we talk about the market, it is all activities, cultural activity, sports activity, education activity.
Être sanctionné par une.
And these learnings can be can lead to having a training referential that we will talk about in a few minutes, and this can be applied to national education, vocational training, higher education, but also to literacy courses for adults. And when we read recommendation number 7 of COPCTA, they ask for a strong recommendation for having flexible paths. So the objective is to build a link between education, training, and employment. We do have an education and a training system with all its components, and the people who gave the opening remarks said that is a point that doesn't that's not an issue only for one level or another, but that it targets all primary school, secondary school, higher education, vocational training. So all this needs to be integrated for all components. And the best way to help the learner have a smooth learning is by assessing the learnings. What are the professional learnings and the professional competencies that were achieved? So we can think maybe of a path that is not official, informal, where we achieve this learning in a professional setting, or it can be achieved through a training program, an official training program. To conclude, I have this slide. This slide introduces everything that will be done afterwards. Which approach was adopted for the implementation of the organic law? It is in this context that we decided to have this training engineering to set up the training institute. So if you look at the main pillars of the organic law and the main components, there is a whole value chain for the learning achievements that are based on real needs, and it will be translated in the next phase of planning that will be followed by the implementation. It will be translated into a guide for all the professions of education and training, and we have adapted this guide for these literacy jobs. And we also need to guarantee that there is the right match between those training professions and the needs of the labor market. So we need to be able to translate the reality on the field to these professions for learning or for literacy. The second pillar of this value chain, it is production, which means we need to have a training referential. In the organic law, they call it the referential guide for training programs. And today there is a national commission in charge of changing the curriculum. This is Article 28 of the organic law. So we respect the whole value chain. However, we have adapted it and implemented for only one specific need, which is literacy. If we look at the rest of the value chain, you do have the assessment of learning. And so we need to develop a guide on how to do the assessment of the learnings, and we conclude with certification that is done in all transparency and a trustworthy process. So we do have a team from different background that worked together, and it took a lot of time. We learned one from the other, and it took time. However, we were able to produce all this in a short time frame. Of course, under the supervision of the coordinator, Mrs. Lessery, and the whole team of Anelka that followed us in this adventure. And thank you very much. We built the referential together for these literacy jobs. The second phase, and of course in line with this referential framework, is to have a framework for the assessment. So the referential for the assessment of the competencies is done based on the activities, how each activity is translated into learning achievement. And we use different sequencing, different thresholds. Some thresholds have to be done before other. we cannot assess a competency if another threshold of competencies has not been assessed. And finally, the referential for assessment, whether you choose the official path or non-official path, you need to be able to assess it. And this is in line with the recommendation of the article number 7, and that way we are fully prepared to answer to all the population and assess everyone and recognize that everyone has reached a certain level of literacy and give them certificates that can contribute to the objective of 2029. On the field, we notice that a lot of people who help build literacy who don't have degrees but have the competencies to do it. And to conclude, the certification referential. This is our next milestone. That's the next milestone of the project of ANLK. So this is the context, the background. It took a lot of time for the team to do all this work. Mr. Bainada, Mr. Mohammed Mahroum, Mr. Mumidou, Mr. Harraq. I would like to thank you all. We have learned a lot from each other. And what we can remember from all this is that we can apply the same model to national education, to vocational training, but also to higher education. Today we do have a pilot that works well and that can be duplicated. And thank you very much.
Je vais donner la parole à Madame Nasri.
I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Al-Asri in order to introduce more IFMA and give a comprehensive highlight of IFMA.
Bonjour.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Lassi, for your presentation and for the contextualization of literacy in the education, national education, as well as for sharing the details on the methodology that we've done with IFMA. We'll have the possibility to talk in details about that in panel 1 and 2. So for my presentation, and I'd like to go back to the beginning of the presentation, we'll give a context to the Institute of Literacy Skills Training, IFMA. We'll see the components of the project on which we have worked and the achievements of the project, as well as the challenges and the perspectives that we have already mentioned with Mr. Slassi already. We all know that the national and international context that marks the system of education and literacy and the institutes is guided by the strategic vision 2025-2030 and the reform of the education. The framework law 5117 to reform education, the new model for the development in their reports requiring a training for social economic insertion, the government program 2021-2026, as well as the international context that is guided by the action framework of Marrakesh adopted by the state members of the United Nations. I'm sorry about that. During the Marrakesh conference and the Confit Air 7 organized in Morocco to improve training and to improve the training of trainers in all the components of the education system. The range of these elements are part of the National Strategy for Literacy 2025-2026 and the roadmap for the National Agency for Countering Illiteracy 2023-2035. We have 4 objectives in that regard that are requiring the improvement and reinforcing of the different Alpha project, working on the visibility of the programs and valorization competences and skills of the learners of the program, contributing to reduce inequality between genders through a equitable access for everyone to education, whether it's formal, informal, or non-formal, as well as working on the active participation of the citizens and their insertion in the social, economic, and cultural life. These objectives has developed 2 strategic choices that are linked to our subject today, IFMA, strategic choice number 6 and 7, that target the improvement of the quality of intervention of civil society's operator about literacy matters, and pilot training engineering in terms of literacy and strengthening the professional aspect. From that, we have the roadmap of the literacy Analka Literacy Roadmap 2023-2027 acts on different or 4 axes, namely reinforcing synergy and mobilizing actors, partner of the agency in order to reach our objectives, reinforcing the systems of governance of literacy, and namely, and the last axis that is directly concerning us in the IFMA project is the improvement of the quality and the maintaining quality for the beneficiaries of Alpha. So at this level of this quality axis, we have 5 projects, including IFMA project. The main fundamentals of this project, and it is a non-physical institute that is inclusive for all current and future skills of literacy. It's an institute that deliver a training with a normative framework. A training is composed of modules for all the skills and comes to meet the needs of the targeted groups currently and in the future. I'd like to recall what Mr. Slessy has mentioned about the intervention access. We have started with a first block analyzing competencies and professions and needs of professionals in training and development repositories, the development of benchmarks and training modules and content to target professionals, and we have worked on a governance and organization framework of the institute. And finally, we have a phase of testing, pilot phase. The steps that we have followed in order to implement the activities, the following activities. As highlighted at the beginning, we have started with an analysis of the professions that already exist on the field and compare it to the range of the skills that were sensed at the level of the previous referentials in order to develop and update these referentials, leading to working on referential frameworks of IFMA. Different referentials with a standardized methodologies that has lead us to work later on the engineering of the training, developing content and training modules in 2 modes, online training and a face-to-face or presence required training. In addition to that, we have worked with the support of CNIP and the division of the e-learning for the development of the platform development and creation of content of the platform. And finally, we've reached the test phase of the tool. We've done an experiment in 2 pilot regions, Tangier, Tetuan, and Loseima, and the region of Nimel al Khenifra for a sampling of 400 personnel representing the 4 professions, the trainer of trainers, and the manager. That is to say, the non-physical training center of IFMA is a new innovative device approach nationally and internationally. It is a holistic institute open to different skills and professions according to the needs, and focusing on the training of trainers and teachers. It is also a tool to concretize and make the culture of lifelong learning more anchored and concrete in general in our country. Now I reach the last point about the challenges and perspectives of the Institute. As already mentioned by Mr. Slessy, I would like to highlight the need and importance to reinforce the technical expertise at the level of the agency, but also with the expertise of UNESCO and the ones who worked on the lifelong trainings, consolidating and development of the pool of expert trainings, progressive and structured training offer, ensuring good category and territorial coverage at the national level, and finally anchoring the Institute as a system of professionalizing the capacities of the professions in this system. What we have already mentioned at the beginning is also developing the certification and recognizing the trainings within the national training framework, and make IFMA a tool used to strengthen the realization of ATLV in Morocco, and opening IFMA on new professions in response to the needs of literacy programs and adult education. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Mrs. El Asri, for your presentation that gave a context and highlighted the objectives of our work as well as our perspectives. I'd like to give the floor to the audience and open a debate, but I would like to highlight an important thing about the philosophy of IFMA Institute, which is subject to discussions and debate. Today, IFMA Institute, as mentioned by its name, is a physical institute for literacy skills training that wants to put in place a framework and give the possibility of all the tissue to participate to the content of the institute, as well as to the formal pathway and training curricula, so that these people could validate their skills and get obtain a certificate in an approach that is acts on flexibility. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to the room. If you have any questions, observations, remarks, the floor is yours. The first question is always the hardest.
Bonjour, merci. Merci.
Thank you to the panelists and speakers of this morning. It was very interesting. My question is very simple. Can we have today an idea on the impact of the work of IFMA? Thank you.
At the outset, let me congratulate the organizers of this seminar, which comes to the improvement, the literacy and the work of the agency. It is such an important topic for education for life that covers all categories of education and all institutions. All the countries focuses on learning in life. So this requires many competences. And the programming, a person who is working in a specific field, and we bring them for education for life. The programming shall be important to consider the context, the circumstances of work. So we have to bear in mind the age group. Therefore, was it possible that learning life to combat illiteracy, is there an intense program for a specific group? Part of the training, it could be train is a hybrid. Do we have a specific program for 1 year, 2 years? And this project shall be crystallized to all levels, from literacy to education. Good morning. At the outset, Mr. President, President of the Council, and the panelists with us today, thanks to those who contributed in the organization of this seminar. We are today in the process of reform made by the government through a strategic vision and through the organic law. We know indeed the schools and education structures are involved in combating this phenomenon, and we're targeting the largest category, mothers, and we know. So we never thought to work outside the education institutions. We have realized that the agency and the director of the agency here with us, we as a parents association, we have always been working alone in combating illiteracy. Now the agency is here. I'm wondering if it is thinking to partner with us to combat this phenomenon and let the families involved in the reform. We have a real problem, especially in remote vulnerable and rural zones. Parents are not involved with us in the reform, so either illiteracy or the daily work keep them busy. Why not to find a way to motivate the parents to consider the specificity of each region? We know that Morocco has different specificities and culture. Illiteracy shall be in all languages: Moroccan Arabic, Amazigh. Our objective is to invite families in the education systems to be part of the reform. Yeah.
But we find that we are fighting illiteracy through isolated communities in different regions scattered around Morocco, but we must address the most important part, which is within the family. There are two different categories. A very young category, and also an older category that has children and families of their own. And we noticed this especially during the COVID era, as multiple families, multiple parents were struggling to help their students keep up with schoolwork. Why not address this very broad category and try to include the families? And try to help the student, the parents, help us through putting an end to illiteracy. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the interveners. This forum is very important, and it is revolving around a very important theme that touches on the social, economic, and scientific aspects of our society. Fighting illiteracy must be strategic on the long, medium, and short term. On the short term, we must have a program or a goal to reach 0 illiterate young person. And that is through publicizing, generalizing, and imploring young people to join schools. And that way we can ensure that the next generation will have 0 illiterate person. And this applies also to the medium-term strategy by fighting dropping out and criminalize employing minors. This is a big issue in the countryside and on the periphery of industrial areas. On the long term, when we are talking about digitalization, we must fight digital illiteracy. It is essential if we ever want to stay up to date with the world. When there is an interest and a benefit from that, we we help people to be motivated to learn. And we also saw that during COVID, because when people were receiving helps from the government, they were forced to learn new things about digitalization. When there is an interest in learning a new technology, people will be encouraged to learn it. Thank you so much. Is there another intervention?
Good morning, everyone. Dokali Saeed. I'm a director of Center of Literacy in Morocco. I'd like to thank you very well. Thank Mr. Abdel Wadoud for the invitation to participate to this important meeting. I have a comment, and then I have a question. That would be a concluding question. I think that at the moment in Morocco, we are capitalizing highly on the on countering literacy. One of the most important references we have is His Majesty's letter addressed to Confiteria 6 in Marrakesh and the agreement of Marrakesh. I think that Morocco has all the important essential components to develop a lifelong learning system. And when talking about a lifelong learning system, all the experts, national, international experts, has confirmed that this concept is very complex and difficult to implement in reality. But Morocco has worked for years in order to have all the components to make this system a success. If we're working in the project of Jacques Delors, one of the essential pillars of the lifelong learning system is training trainers. We can go back to this important reference at the level of UNESCO or all the other experts working on the lifelong learning systems. Morocco is ranked at the international level as a country having all the important components to build a lifelong learning system. We can discuss this in details later, but my question is the following. IFMA, as a non-physical institute for literacy skills training and a lifelong learning system, how was it conceptualized based on the lifelong learning system? It is true that IFMA will work on the matters of countering illiteracy, but with the agency, it is only one component of the lifelong learning system. So how does IFMA, or how is IFMA going to face this challenge? Thank you very much. I think that we've taken all the questions. Do you have one last question? So that we can start answering your questions, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the partners who presented a sort of the art of what we need to do, what we are, and what we have done. I want to share with you some of the figures that I've taken from a publication of UNDP 2021-2022, ranking Morocco 123 in terms of education and health issues. We have all the necessary resources to reach a better position and ranking. If we go back to illiteracy and if we adopt a historical perspective, in 2019 we have reached 24% of illiterate people. In 2022, 25%. So on a timeline, we have noticed that there is a slow decrease of the rate of illiteracy. In 2035, we would like to reach 0% of illiterate people in Morocco. But we slowed down, and the rate of decrease of illiteracy is of 0.5 per year. And by 2035, we will reach 0 illiterate individual in Morocco by 2040. And I hope that with the tools that you are offering today, we will reach this rate before 2040. I'd like to add that every year, unfortunately, we produce children dropping out of school, and we notice and observe that 60% 70% of the dropout of school drop out with 0 skills in writing and reading. Unfortunately, we had made the same observation, and I want to correct a figure. 2014, when we talk about 30% of the population, illiterate population, we're talking about 10 years old plus. But 2022 targeted another category, which is 15 years plus old. 15 years old plus. Please go ahead, sir.
In the beginning, I would like to thank Mr. Mohamed Slassi and Ms. Al-Asri for your presentation. There is no doubt that the IFMA will definitely improve for training for fighting illiteracy. But I believe that IFMA should also work on improving the conditions of those trainers trainers who work within the IFMA. We must work on providing a comfortable circumstances, and for the teachers, tutors, and trainers in order to give a comprehensive vision. Improving the quality of the training means also improving the quality of life of the people who took training as a profession.
Would you like to intervene?
In the beginning, I would like to thank everyone for their questions and interventions. Our presentation was just to strike a debate between all of us.
But it is very interesting. It shows the interest of the participant and to this seminar. Regarding the question about the impact of IFMA's work on the system, I would like to highlight or raise something that I didn't mention in the beginning of my presentation. It's a recent project that started in June 21. It's a project of the implementation of the Non-Physical Institute for the Alpha or literacy professions, with the financing of the European Union and the technical support of UNESCO. It's the first year after the implementation of this project, and it's an ongoing project. We cannot talk at the moment about the impact since we are only on the phase of the implementation of the institute. That is being done progressively. The experiments or the pilot project were done in 2 regions of Morocco, and the challenge is much bigger. We'll have 12 other regions to target. The impact today, or the impact will come later on the upcoming phases. Regarding the question,
the programming and digitalization and taken into account the different categories, especially the parents of the families.
for your recall, I have shown one of the axes of intervention of the agency, that is targeting and improvement of the targeted audience. In this framework, the agency, within its roadmap, has reviewed the targeted groups by the literacy programs, and we are reforming and redeveloping the programs for literacy, and we have developed a program for parents of students. We have started a pilot action last year, and today we have reached the phase of launching the project on the national level in partnership with our historical partnership, the Ministry of National Education, Preschool and Sport, as well as with the other actors and social partners. There is also a program of literacy for youth in order to address the challenge of the diversity of the targeted public. We have illiterate categories that are young, and we are diversifying programs given to this category. We are also launching a literacy program in Amazigh language to diversify the offer and the targeted groups. And regarding taking into account using digitalization and digital tools in literacy, one of the main axes on which the agency is focused is the adoption and the use of the digital tools. As every actor of the system, we were impacted during COVID-19 pandemic. Studies were stopped, classes were stopped, and we were facing a situation where we needed to continue deploying our literacy classes. In 2020, we developed hundreds of literacy capsules and videos that we shared with our partners, especially NGOs from the civil societies organizations, in order to be able to continue our work online. And we have also developed mobile apps for literacy, especially the functional literacy. We have an app that's called Alpha Noor, Alpha Fillah for the farmers programs, and Alpha Bahar for the maritime programs that we can download from Play Store, so that the beneficiaries of the programs of Alpha could continue learning through the use of digital tools. We haven't developed platforms and mobile apps only, but we took into account the using digital tools in IFMA, which is the subject matter of today's seminars. We are going to have another panel about the use of digital tools, which is very important to conduct the literacy programs on a national level. The agency mobilizes around 15,000 professionals of the between 10,000 and 15,000 professionals of the field of literacy in Morocco, in order to guarantee the quality and the implementation of the programs. We need to build their capacities, and this could only be done through a high quality training through IFMA and the use of digital tools and new technologies, in order to face the challenge of organization and face-to-face trainings, with all their challenges that everyone in the room knows already.
Voilà. Par rapport
Now, regarding incentives to the professionals of the sector, training is the first portal and
أول وسيلة ولا
the first motive that we're gonna use is to provide quality training and accredited certificates.
The agency is working.
un chantier qui
Agency is working in order to make priorities of the agency at the core of our work. The speaker is switching between languages, which make the interpreters work very hard. Questions were around literacy, proximity, targeted groups. We need to make we need to put in place a relationship between these two concepts. I'll give you a definition of UNESCO. If we don't give a definition of UNESCO and see the different components of literacy and the perimeter of literacy, we cannot understand where it starts and where it ends and understand the concept of lifelong learning and where this system starts and ends. We have actors from these two dimensions present with us in this room, and I'm very glad to have them, and I'm talking under their control. UNESCO, the definition is given here. Literacy is a continuum learning and mastering of reading, writing, and using numbers all your life. It includes education and is part of a broader set of skills that includes digital skills, education, media education for sustainable development and global citizenship, as well as specific job skills. Literacy is not only knowing how to read and write, but it's a range of skills that we can classify at a national and international level into skills categories. First of all, it is a fundamental right that is given to every citizen of the world who doesn't have skills in a given field. So these skills are, first of all, acquiring instrumental skills, basic one, ability to read, write, speak, listen, and calculate. But we have other functional skills that are very important, for example, such as digital literacy, financial education, media literacy education, scientific and artistic education or literacy. These are other components of the educational system can contribute to this kind of education, but we needed to put in place a framework of governance with skills referentials, evaluation referentials, as well as training referentials. When we talk about trainings, we're talking about how we can structure this training to translate the skills that are required and mobilize all the resources that exist. That's the answer to the question of Mr. President earlier, who said we cannot mix young and not so young people together. But the idea is to be open to a significant group and to recognize their skills and complete the skills that they're not enough. These are mechanisms of recognition, accreditation, and validation. So these are mechanisms that are already in place. There are other skills, for example, professional skills likely to promote integration and financial autonomy. And then there is citizenship skills that allow the person to be a citizen who's aware of its rights and obligations. And finally, I'd like to say that we need to develop a citizen engaged in the process of learning throughout life, aware of this of his or her potential to go from the bottom to the top if he or she has the capacities and skills and wants to do so. And that's where we tackle the lifelong learning systems. A an education that covers a different level of certification. We're talking about a bachelor, master's degree, and PhD. We're talking about, for example, vocational professionals certification for technicians, for example. National education is capitalizing and focusing on the certificate of the primary school, middle school, and high school certificate. All these certificates could be accessible thanks to the lifelong learning systems, because we have done a transition from the current system that is focusing on the formal trainings and education, but we also focused on an open education system to all the other groups, whether they're literate or illiterate, with or without certificate, where we recognize their value with a certificate, making a huge difference. Developing a policy for literacy or a lifelong learning systems, this is two different things. Of course, the targeted groups will at some point intertwine, but it's two different matters. The African Foundation today has this role to implement the lifelong learning systems, and I'm talking under the control of Mr. Al-Alwa and the president of the foundation, the executive president of the foundation, present with us. So it sees the idea behind the lifelong learning system, and LNK is focused on the literacy. We needed to clarify these two things. Now, regarding what you've said about the dynamics of resorption, we are saying that we are not going to reach that rate by 2035, but you're probably right. But if we think differently and think that all the components are playing their roles, we'll reach another level of capacities and skills development. The first workshop will highlight the new philosophy and the new ways of work that will allow the mobilization and mutualization of the effort in order to respect the objective of 2029, because with the current system we're not going to reach this objective. That is why there is a necessity of the implementation of the to implement the levers of the strategy and the framework law to have an integrated system of a lifelong learning system. I think that Mr. Khabouch, would you like to take the floor? Yes, please go ahead.
I apologize, Mr. President. I just want to add few points, few questions for Mrs. Al-Hadiri. The agency is open for all civil communities. So when we're talking about federations and for organizations, you can participate in it, and therefore the parents can start groups to fight illiteracy. As for
the supervisors, the agency is doing about 18,000 supervisors in combating illiteracy. And there are those, of course, who run the project's members, activists from civil society, about 21,000. I had a meeting with the head of government, as he is the director council of the agency, and he agrees on increasing the wages of the supervisors of the illiteracy program. As I am the president of the agency, it's not a matter of resources. to manage programs on illiteracy all over the Kingdom of Morocco with no exception. We have all the resources. There are some impediments, or rather there are challenges, constraints that are not connected, related to the agency. Our strategy, we have a map, we have data on the drop-in school, we diagnose the problem of illiteracy. It is very vivid for us, but the challenges we encounter in recruiting, we have all the infrastructure, but to recruit the citizens, we need to relate to other protagonists rather than the agency. Recruiting certain age groups who do not come to the youth clubs, they never show up. We have opened classes, but no customers, no students. And I believe there are other protagonists who are supposed to play the roles, including the communes, municipalities. And here comes the importance of the total mobilization to recruit, as I said, students. Let me conclude with a point as an answer to Mr. Alawi. International statistics are vacuum. There are no statistics. That's personal responsibility. I don't believe there's a country with zero illiteracy all over the world. The concept of illiteracy today, we're talking about literacy and countries, they call it literacy. It's a kind of literacy in some leading countries. Let's say France, 4%. South Korea, 4.5%. Germany, 3% of illiterates. Now, the old definition of illiteracy is the one who write and read. There is no zero illiteracy. In the agency, if we get about 5%, this is an international figure. It is very important to reach this percentage. Yet, the endeavors provided by our country since the independence, so the agency could probably, the lady did not talk about, she talks about applications, but today we have a different reading we have about 130 manual for combating illiteracy in all domains, in all disciplines. The program is under the patronage of His Majesty. His Majesty talked that combating illiteracy should go beyond reading, writing, accounting, but we need to include them into the vocational social integration. Here comes the role of the agency. We are open to all kinds of vocations. Thank you.
شكرا سي خربوش على
Thank you, Mr. Kharbush. Mr. Salah, I used to know something, now I reinforce it.
ce que je savais déjà.
I will read what I knew.
Todd, yes. Si puedo, l'analphabétisme a été éradiqué.
So, in 3 countries in Latin America, illiteracy was eradicated. I remember
كل واحد معاه 5 هو اللي قراهم. Aussi simple. Donc, si puedo, on peut. Merci. شكرا سي صالح. Effectivement, il y a des
Indeed, there are some approaches, some methods that are efficient, some methods such as explicit and TARL. We hope that they can help overcome this problem of youth. As we can see from the PNEA assessment, we are not very happy. So we are all in line with the strategy. There are practices that are sources of inspiration, and Anelka uses those best practices. Thank you, Mr. Al-Wadi, for this clarification. It reminded me another program of the roadmap of the agency, which is the involvement of universities and higher education to combat illiteracy. So we signed the conventions with all 14 Moroccan universities, conventions for partnership, including Qadiyad in Marrakesh, with whom we already had this one-to-one experience. And it is the students of the university who will be in charge of helping one person from their family or community, and we are scaling up this experience to all universities in order to involve all students in this very important national cause. If you would allow me, Mr. Slesi, I would like to add another point. Yes, indeed, there is a study on the vision of Morocco up to 2035. So it is a study that is done by the National Agency to Combat Illiteracy and the Vocational Training Department. And this is through support of PIAF, which is a European Union program. So the study is ongoing, and it is a study that will allow us develop a vision and a strategy for lifelong learning. So this study will help develop the right approach.
Tout au long de la vie et qu'on mène dans ce sens.
It will help develop the right approach for lifelong learning, and through our IFMA project, through the Institute project, this has to be taken into account. And when Mr. Selassie explained to you the conceptual approach as well as the approach for implementation, and thank you. Thank you. So we support you at the council very closely through this cooperation. So now I would like to thank you all. I think we have more workshops. There is the workshop 1 and workshop 2. So Mr. Kharbash talked about the importance of the family in combating illiteracy. However, the Parents Association, and even though 70% of schools have PTA, only 23% of parents are involved, and they say they are not involved as much because they don't have a voice. They are marginalized. They don't feel that they have a voice. And the educational institution, the school, that doesn't allow the Parents Association to play the role it should play, because it is the family, it is the parents who actually can monitor the learning of their children. Thank you for your comment. And now I would like to invite you all for a coffee break, and we pick up in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes. So we spent a lot of time for this session to understand the different concepts, and see you in a few minutes. Thank you.